The light that morning was soft and kind. It slipped over my kitchen table and made the pale ribbon shine. I was tying bows on small favors I had made for my daughter's baby shower. Before I begin, I want you close to me. Smash that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Thank you for sitting with me, for listening to a mother's heart. The kettle hummed. The house smelled like vanilla and lemon. The favors were wrapped and the quilt waited in its box. I was thinking about what color dress to wear when the phone buzzed on the counter. Daniel's name glowed on the screen. I smiled without thinking, the way you do for family. I answered, ready to say, "Good morning." His voice was low, like a secret told under a blanket. "Don't come," he said. He added, "Please, for Lily, it will be simpler." He spoke as if he was keeping the peace, as if his words were a careful gift. I heard the softness. I also heard the end of a door closing. My hand went to the cool edge of the counter. My heart stumbled on the step it had taken toward the day. I wanted to say a dozen things. I wanted to say, "This is my daughter's baby shower." I wanted to ask, "What have I done?" I felt the weight of years, of lunches packed, of stories read, of long nights when a fever broke and I kissed a warm forehead. But I swallowed my questions. I listened to the kettle. I heard my own breath in and out, in and out. I said, "All right." That morning, I learned the shape of love I had not practiced yet. I did not rage. I did not vanish either. I chose something else. If you will walk with me, I will show you what I did next. I will tell you about my daughter and the years that made us. I will tell you how a quiet voice broke me for a moment and then taught me how to hold love in a new way. He did not expect my next move. To be honest, neither did I. My name is Margaret, but most people call me Maggie. I have lived in the same small town most of my life, in a house with a maple tree out front and a kitchen that knows the smell of butter and sugar. I raised my daughter, Lily, in that house. It was just the two of us after her father left when she was 3. The walls held our laughter and our tired sighs and the sound of bedtime stories read slowly, page by page. We made birthdays with magazine scraps and tape. One year, when money was thin, Lily cut out little flags from old pictures and pasted them onto string. We hung them across the doorway and pretended we were in a festival. She had glue on her fingers and joy in her eyes. We did not have much, but we had that kind of light. We saved coins in a blue jar for a beach trip. Every time we found a quarter in the couch, we would drop it in and clap. It took months. When we finally made it, the ocean air felt like a blessing. We ate sandwiches with sand in them and laughed. Lily fell asleep on the ride home with her cheek against the car window, and I drove slow so I could hold the quiet. Rainy afternoons were for books. We would go to the used bookstore and search for stories that smelled like old paper. At home, we spread a blanket on the floor, and Lily rested her head on my shoulder as I read. Sometimes we did not even turn the page for a long time. We just stayed there, warm and safe. That memory is still a soft chair in my mind. As she grew, she stayed gentle. She loved little things, a pencil sharpened just right, the way butter melts on toast, small notes tucked in her lunch. In middle school, she brought home a stray cat with half an ear and a proud walk. We named him Captain. He ruled our hallway and slept on Lily's feet. When he died years later, we buried him under the maple and planted daisies. Teenage years came with their own weather. There were slammed doors once or twice, and then sorry notes slipped under them. There was a first heartbreak, a boy who forgot he was holding a heart. I made soup and kept the porch light on. When she was ready, Lily came to sit and say, "Mom, can I tell you what happened?" I learned to listen more than I fixed. She graduated in a yellow dress we found on sale. The dress was simple, and she was bright. I cried, of course. Then she found work as an elementary school teacher. She brought home crayon drawings and stories about reading circles and tiny hands that reached for hers. The classroom became her second home. She loved it, and I loved watching her love it. "Mom," she said one evening, stirring tea in my kitchen, "there's someone I want you to meet." She said his name softly, like a secret she was glad to share. "Daniel." I saw the way her eyes held the name, careful and warm. I nodded and smiled. I felt that small flutter a mother feels when a new person steps toward her child. We invited him to dinner. I made roast chicken, the kind that makes the whole house smell safe. Daniel arrived 5 minutes early with flowers in a paper sleeve. He stood straight and neat, and he shook my hand with both of his. "Thank you for having me, Mrs. Hart," he said. "Please call me Maggie," I replied. His smile was small but kind. At the table, he folded his napkin once, then again, just so. He listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, his words were careful and exact. He asked about my work and about the town and about the maple tree out front. He helped clear the plates. He did not leave streaks on the glasses when he washed them. I noticed that. Later, when I asked Lily how she felt, she leaned against the counter and smiled. "He is steady," she said. "He makes lists. He keeps his promises." I nodded. I felt a quiet peace about him and also a small nervousness I could not name. It is a strange thing to welcome someone new into the rooms of your life. The wedding was small and simple. In the backyard under string lights we borrowed from the neighbor. I made butter cookies from my mother's recipe and placed them in her old tin. The lid had a dent on one side from being dropped at a picnic years ago. I set the tin on the dessert table like a small blessing from my childhood to theirs. Lily wore a dress that moved when she breathed. Daniel cried when he saw her, and I loved him for that. I met Daniel's mother, Carol, at the wedding. She held me in a firm hug and said, "We will take good care of them together." She wore a blue dress and a pearl necklace. Her eyes watched her son with a proud, careful light. We spoke about recipes and weather. I liked her and also felt the edge of her protectiveness. It matched my own. After they married, I visited their apartment sometimes. I brought soup in jars and a loaf of bread wrapped in a clean towel. Their place was neat and modern, with a calendar on the wall that tracked their meals and bills. Daniel liked order. Lily liked warm blankets. Together, they made a place that felt safe. I tried not to ask too many questions, but I am a mother. Sometimes I ask them anyway. If I tidied a corner, Daniel would thank me and then gently move things back to their place. "I have a system," he would say with a small laugh. I would nod and swallow a thread of embarrassment. Lily would squeeze my hand and say, "Mom, it's okay," with a soft smile. We were all learning the steps to a new dance. One early spring afternoon, Lily asked me to meet her at the park. The trees were just budding. We sat on a bench and watched a little boy chase a red ball down the path. Lily took my hand and placed it on her belly. "Mom," she whispered, "we're having a baby." The world tilted in the gentlest way. I cried and laughed at the same time. We talked about names. We spoke about tiny socks and soft hats. I told her about the cradle that had been in our family for 4 generations, stored in my attic with cedar blocks tucked into the corners. I told her about the quilt my grandmother had sewn with daisies stitched by hand, a little uneven here and there. "I can mend it," I said. "I would love to." Lily put her head on my shoulder, the way she did when she was small. "I would love that, Mom." The baby shower idea grew fast, like something planted in rich soil. Maya, her close friend from the school, offered to host. "Let's do a co-ed shower," Maya said. "Games, good food, small speeches, nothing too formal." I was happy to help. "I can make favors," I said. "Little things, simple and sweet." Lily clapped her hands and said that would be perfect. I started gathering what I needed. Small tins, pale ribbon, a stamp with a daisy on it. I made a list on the back of an envelope and tucked it into my cookbook. The kitchen smelled like vanilla on those evenings, and the radio played soft songs from the oldies station. I thought about the cradle. I pulled it from the attic and wiped it down with lemon oil. It shone like history. Daniel liked plans. He made a registry with careful notes. He made a spreadsheet for the budget. He booked the caterer early and sent reminders to everyone. I admired his order. I also missed the way my mother and aunties did things by hand, with recipes that started with a handful of this and a pinch of that. I tried to match his rhythm. Sometimes I fell back into mine. I met Carol again over coffee to talk about the shower. She liked traditions. She spoke about a blessing her own mother used to say over new bobbies. She wanted to include it. I suggested we also put the quilt on a chair where everyone could touch it and add a small note. Carol's eyes softened. "That could be lovely," she said. We smiled at each other, 2 mother hearts trying to braid our ways gently. Still, I felt the tug of difference. My hands itched to help. I'm used to opening cabinets and wiping counters and leaving food on stoves for people to find. Daniel is used to asking first, to schedules, to order. Neither way is wrong. But sometimes, 2 good ways meet and do not know which one should step aside. I started to choose my moments more carefully. The days moved along. I stitched a little each night to mend the quilt. I brought tea to my chair and threaded the needle in the good light. Each daisy that needed help got a new petal. I hummed the tune Lily loved as a child. The quilt held more than fabric. It held memory and hope, and my quiet promise to be gentle. Maya sent updates in a group message. The colors would be pale yellow and gray. The cake would have a simple design with a small sugar daisy. Daniel coordinated RSVPs. Lily wrote thank you notes as gifts arrived from the registry. It was a modern shower with old touches. It felt like a bridge between the ways we all knew. On my table, the small favors stacked up, each tied with ribbon and a tiny paper tag that said, "Welcome, little one." I counted them twice, then again. I imagined Lily's face when she saw the quilt on the chair. I imagined slipping the cradle into their nursery and telling the story of each baby who had slept there before. I imagined being careful and kind, the way love asks you to be when a family changes shape. Under all that, quiet as a thread, there was the knowledge that we were different. Carol had her way, I had mine. Daniel had his, too. Lily stood in the middle, loved by all of us, trying to hold the best parts of each. I prayed in the simple way I know. I asked for grace. I asked for gentleness. I asked for wisdom when to step forward and when to step back. As the shower drew near, I polished the butter cookie tin and ironed a soft scarf to wear. I placed the quilt in tissue paper inside a box, and I tucked a note under the edge. The house felt full with waiting. The maple leaves rustled outside like quiet applause. I did not know yet about the phone call that would come. I only knew I loved my daughter, and that love, to me, has always looked like showing up with open hands. The first small crack showed in a warm, ordinary moment. We were sitting at their dining table, talking about the registry. The late sun made tiny squares on the floor. Daniel had his laptop open, and Lily held a pen and a pad of sticky notes. I had brought a plate of oranges, peeled and sectioned, the way Lily likes them. "I wanted to ask," I said, "about the cradle. It's in my attic. 4 generations have slept in it. I can clean it, sand it, make sure it's safe. We could add a new mattress." Daniel's eyes lifted from the screen. He was kind, not sharp. "I appreciate that," he said. "It's beautiful, I'm sure, but safety standards change. I think it's better to get a new one. The slat distances, the finishes, all of that." I nodded. "I understand," I said, and I did understand. Then I tried again with a softer hope. "What about a vintage dresser for the nursery? I saw one at the thrift shop. Solid wood, I could paint it." He shifted in his chair. "New is better for off-gassing and drawer sliders," he replied. "I've got one bookmarked. It's on sale this week." His tone was careful. He was explaining, not dismissing. But my heart heard the sound of a door clicking shut. Old things had made my life doable. I had mended and scrubbed and made beauty out of what we had. My hands folded in my lap so they would not reach for something to fix. Lily touched my knee under the table. "Maybe the dresser could go in the guest room," she offered gently. "We could keep baby blankets in it there." I smiled. "Of course," I said. "Whatever works best." I peeled another orange slice and placed it on her plate. I kept my voice even. I kept my face calm. Inside, I felt a small ache, like an old song that does not quite fit the new dance. On another afternoon, I dropped by with soup. I left it on the stove with a note and started to tidy the kitchen while it simmered. It was a habit I had carried from years of helping my own mother, from years of making order where I could. I lined up the spice jars from tallest to shortest and wiped a ring from the counter. I thought it would be a kindness. Daniel walked in from the bedroom, smiled, then paused. His eyes went to the spice shelf. I saw his shoulders change just a little. "Oh," he said, keeping his voice light, "I keep those in a certain order, labels out by cuisine. It just helps me cook faster." I stepped back from the counter. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "I should have asked." "It's okay," he said. He moved the jars back with quiet, exact motions. The sound of glass touching wood was louder in my ears than it needed to be. Later, when he went to take a work call, Lily stood beside me, close enough to touch. "Mom," she said softly, "thank you for the soup, and for cleaning. But can you try to leave the kitchen the way we keep it? It just helps us not to lose track of things. Yes, I said. I looked down at my hands. I can do that. I forced a small laugh. Your mother is learning new tricks. She leaned her head against my shoulder. You do not have to do everything, she whispered. Just be here, that is enough. I kissed the top of her head. It should have soothed me. It did, and also it reminded me that my old way of loving might not fit every new room. What used to feel like care could look like control if I did not ask first. It is not easy to see yourself in a new mirror. The group chat for the baby shower had a bright name and a string of emojis. At first, it felt like a circle of women in an old kitchen. Ideas bubbled up. We laughed with words. Maya kept a list and I offered small things, ribbons, a platter I could bring, a song I could teach for a quiet moment. Then Sophie joined with energy that filled the screen. She was lively and quick. She suggested a theme with eucalyptus and gold. She posted mood boards with clean lines. She wrote, "We can streamline the favors. Maybe no handwritten tags. I know a place that can print everything." It was not cruel. It was efficient. But our daisy tags disappeared in the flow. Maya tried to hold both worlds. She replied, "I love the daisies Maggie suggested. Maybe daisies on the cake and eucalyptus on the tables." She sent me a private note. "Your touches are beautiful. Please don't stop." I told her I would bring whatever she needed, and I started offering less, not out of spite, to keep the water smooth. Once I wrote, "I can bring the butter cookie tin. It matters to me." The thread scrolled on. Then Sophie wrote, "We hired a dessert table, but cookies can go by the coffee." It was practical. It was small. It was the sort of thing that can make a person feel smaller if they are already unsure where to stand. I put down my phone and went to wash a dish I had already washed. Carol called me on a Sunday afternoon. Her voice was warm with a careful edge. We spoke about the weather, then slid toward the shower. "It's shaping up," she said. "So many ideas. I worry sometimes that there are too many cooks in this kitchen, everyone wanting their way." I felt the sting, quiet but sharp. My mouth went dry and then found its way. "I understand," I said. "I truly just want Lily to feel loved." "I know you do," she replied. "We all do." There was a pause. It's easy to be carried by momentum. "I can step back," I offered. "I will follow your lead." The words were right. They also tasted like chalk. After we hung up, I stood at my sink and watched the maple branches move. I tried to let the wind carry my resentment away. I did not want it in my house. One morning, I walked past a baby store and felt a pull like a tide. In the window was a soft gray car seat, sturdy and well-made. I went inside. I asked questions. The clerk showed me safety ratings and ease of use. It was on sale. My heart rose. I could give them something strong and useful, something that would keep the baby safe every day. I paid and asked the young man to put it in my trunk. I imagined Daniel's smile, Lily's relief that one big expense was covered. I drove over to their apartment. Lily was at work, but Daniel was home on his lunch break. He came down when I called, and I opened the trunk with a hopeful heart. "A surprise," I said, "for the baby." He blinked and then recognized the model. He set his hand on the box and spoke carefully. "Thank you, Maggie, that's very generous." He looked at me and then away. "I already budgeted for a different model that fits our car better. I researched latch angles and base sizes. This one is good, but we had chosen another. Could I have the receipt so we can exchange it?" I felt heat in my face. I did not want him to see any hurt. I smiled. "Of course," I said. "I should have asked. I will bring it later." "Thank you for understanding," he said. He touched my arm, a brief, awkward kindness. "I know your heart is in this." I nodded and drove away. I parked under a tree and rested my forehead on the steering wheel. Tears came in a soft rush. The car seat had looked like love to me. Now it looked like a mistake. I wiped my face with a tissue and laughed at myself gently. "Maggie," I said out loud, "you and your surprises." Then I sat up, took a breath, and drove home. That evening, Lily called. "Daniel told me," she said softly. "Mom, I'm sorry. He is in his planning mode. He means well." "I know," I said. "It's all right." "Nothing you do is wrong," she whispered. "Sometimes we just need to do it our way." "I'm learning," I replied. The words were quiet, but they were true. I was learning something I had not needed to learn before, how to love while standing a step back. The quilt was my anchor in those weeks. When the days felt like shifting ground, I sat at my chair, put on my glasses, and threaded my needle. The daisies had been sewn by my grandmother's hand when she was young and poor and stubborn. Some petals were loose, some stems faded. I mended them with tiny stitches, feeling the past meet the present in the linen. One afternoon, I brought the quilt to show Lily and Daniel. I folded it on their couch and lifted the edge for the light. "I fixed the weak spots," I said. "It's not perfect, but it has a lot of love in it." Lily smoothed a square with her palm. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Her voice wobbled and she blinked fast. Daniel stood beside her. He ran his fingers along the seam. "It is," he said. He cleared his throat. "I just worry about old fabric near a newborn's skin, allergens, dyes. Maybe we could use it as a wall hanging or drape it over a chair." He said it gently. He was trying to be respectful. Still, the words found a place in me and pressed. I smiled. "Of course," I said. "We will do what feels best." I folded the quilt again, slower than I needed to, and slid it back into the box. I did not look at Lily's face. I focused on the tissue paper. I listened for the kettle that was not there. That night, Lily came to my house for tea. We sat at the same kitchen table that had seen homework and birthdays and quiet prayers. I poured chamomile and set out honey. We were careful. We spoke about mild things first. After a while, I said, "I only want to help." My voice sounded like a slow river. "I know, Mom," she answered, her eyes on her cup. "But sometimes I need to decide without anyone else's hands on it." The words settled between us like a folded blanket. I nodded. "All right," I said. It hurt, and I understood. These two things lived side by side in me, like two sisters who did not always get along. I reached across the table and squeezed her fingers. "Tell me how to do that." She breathed out. "Ask first," she said. "Let me set the plan. Come when I ask, and when I do not ask, please trust that I'm okay." I nodded again. "I can do that." It felt like learning to write with my left hand. Clumsy, possible. A few days later, I saw Mrs. Patel in her yard with her watering can. She is a neighbor with eyes that seemed to have seen everything and judged nothing. She waved me over. "You look like a woman with thoughts," she said. I laughed softly. "I am thinking about how to be a mother to a mother," I replied. "I'm used to holding. Now I think I am supposed to open my hands." She nodded. She set down her can and leaned on the fence. "When my daughter married, I rearranged her kitchen," she said. She smiled and then cried later. I did not know until she told me. We both learned. "What did you learn?" I asked. "That love sometimes steps back so trust can step forward," she said. "Stepping back is not leaving. It is making a space for the other to stand." She smiled, soft and knowing. "And we do not always step back forever. We dance, we move, we watch the other's feet." I held those words like a small stone in my pocket. I wanted to turn them over when I felt restless. I thanked her and went home and brewed tea. I wrote the sentence on a piece of paper and stuck it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a strawberry. The days moved toward the shower with a hum like a hive. The group chat kept buzzing. Sophie posted schedules with time stamps. Carol sent the blessing words her mother had used. Maya found a way to include both the blessing and a quiet moment for people to write notes. I said I would bring extra pens. I said I would bring water pitchers. I said less than I wanted to. I tried to hold my tongue like a small bird, safe in my cupped hands. 2 nights before the shower, I laid out the favors on my table. I tied pale ribbon around each one, the way I had pictured. I stamped a daisy on the tags. The buttons of my grandmother's cardigan lay beside me, waiting to be sewn into a new life. I breathed in. I breathed out. I chose to believe that my daughter would feel loved, even if the room did not look like my rooms. The day before the shower, Carol sent me a text. "We're finalizing seating. Space is tight. We're adding an extra table." I replied, "Thank you, let me know if you need anything." She wrote back a heart. It was small and it helped. I ironed a soft scarf to wear. I polished the butter cookie tin. I wrote a card to the baby, addressed to Sprout. The nickname Lily had used one night when we were talking about tiny green things pushing up through soil. I tucked the card into the quilt box. I slept that night with the window cracked open, listening to the maple leaves and asking for a steady heart. In the early morning, when the sun was not yet bright, I stood in my kitchen with a cup of tea. The counters were clear. The favors waited like little moons. I thought the hard part was done. I thought the day would be simple. I did not know yet what would be asked of me. The morning began with kindness. Sunlight slid across the counter and warmed the pale ribbon. The kettle hummed its soft note. The quilt rested in tissue, a white box tied with string. On top, I had placed a card. "To Sprout," I wrote in my neatest hand. "May you always find warm arms and soft ground." I sealed it with a small sticker shaped like a daisy. I checked the time. I had built an extra hour into my morning because I like to move slowly when I care about something. I set the butter cookies into their tin and pressed parchment between the layers. I chose the soft scarf from the chair and draped it over the back of another, ready to be put on. The house smelled like lemon oil and clean laundry. My phone lay on the counter. It buzzed once, then again. I looked down. Daniel's name. I smiled without thinking and then felt a small flutter in my chest, the way one might feel when a bird is about to startle. I answered. "Good morning," I said. His voice came quiet, like a secret he believed was necessary. "Don't come," he said. He did not rush. He said the words as if they were a balm. "Please, for Lily, it will be simpler, less stress." I did not move. I put my free hand on the cool edge of the counter. I looked at the quilt box, the card with the baby's nickname, the row of tiny favors lined up like a promise. My heart skipped and then waited. "I don't understand," I said. He exhaled, careful even in his breath. "There's been a lot of tension," he replied. "Some of my family members feel uncomfortable. Too many opinions. Sophie says it's better to keep it clean. Carol agrees it will be smoother if we limit the voices in the room. Decisions have been made. I believe it will protect Lily from stress if we keep today simple. I'm asking you not to come." He sounded almost apologetic. I heard fear in him, not anger. I felt the shape of a storm he could not name, and I knew he was trying, in his way, to hold an umbrella over everyone. I swallowed the first answers that rose up like quick birds. The kettle clicked off. The house listened with me. I thought of Lily at 12, lining up her pencils before she began her homework. I thought of her at 28, resting her hand on her belly and smiling. I thought of my own mother who used to say, "When you are tempted to fix a thing, sit down and drink a glass of water first." I listened to my breath. "All right," I said. The word came out like a soft stone dropping into a pond. I saw its ripples on the surface of his silence. He sounded surprised. "Thank you," he said quickly. "I did not want to hurt you." "I know," I replied. I did not say more. There was nothing to argue that would not spill into places we could not clean up today. "Take care of Lily," I added. "Please tell her I love her." "I will," he said. "Thank you," he hung up. The line went quiet, the house was still. I stood alone with my gentle things. My first impulse was to go anyway. To arrive with a smile, to stand at the edge of the room, to greet no one loudly, to simply be there for my child. Another impulse was to call Lily at once and say, "Did you know?" Both impulses felt like hot tea too soon. I set them down. I made myself a cup of tea and did not drink it. I watched the steam climb and fade. I felt the ache in my chest and let it sit beside me. It was my companion, not my ruler. I walked to the quilt box and lifted the lid. I touched the folded edge with 2 fingers. "We will wait," I whispered. "We will not break anything today." I took paper from the drawer and a pen that writes smooth. I sat at the kitchen table. I began a letter to my daughter. "My Lily," I wrote, "I am with you. If you look up today and do not see me, know that there is a steady light on in my heart for you. No blame sits in this house, only blessing. You will be a mother who listens and learns. You will be a mother who knows how to ask for help and also how to say not yet. I am proud of you. May today be gentle. May you laugh. May you feel safe. May you carry the love of everyone who has held you since you were small. I will see you when the day is quiet. With all my love, Mom." I folded the letter and slid it under the edge of the quilt, where she would find it later if that was the way the day wanted to go. I did not write Daniel's name in it. I did not write the words, "Don't come." This was not a record. It was a blessing. Then I picked up my phone and sent a message to Maya. "Dear Maya," I typed, "I am cheering from here. Please give Lily my love. If there is any gap you need me to fill, I am near. No pressure at all." I added a heart and a daisy. She replied quickly. "Are you okay?" she wrote. "We can sort this." "I am okay," I typed. "Let the day be calm. I will see you soon." She sent another heart, soft, like a hand pressed in mine. I looked around my kitchen. It felt like a stage set after the actors had left. It felt wrong to leave it like that. I needed to do something that did not break the fragile balance that had been asked of me. I breathed. I remembered Mrs. Patel's words. Love sometimes steps back so trust can step forward. I went out to the small shed and took down a string of lights I had used for the wedding years ago. I shook them loose and ran my fingers along the wire. I checked for bulbs that still worked. I brought out a white tablecloth from the closet and smoothed it over the backyard table. I placed a bowl of water at the center and floated daisies in it. I set out plates and gentle cups. I laid the butter cookie tin on the table and lifted the lid as if it were a small open door. I called this simple space in my mind Blessing Hour. Not a party, not a shower, no speeches, no games, only a place to sit if someone needed somewhere to bring their feelings when the event was over. A soft landing, a circle of light. I wanted to offer stillness, not a storm. I sat with my phone again. I wrote a message to a small list. "Dear ones," I wrote, "I am thinking of Lily's day. After the shower, my backyard will be open from 6 to 8 for a quiet blessing hour. No pressure, no obligations. If you want to stop by for a cup of tea, a cookie, and a moment to write a blessing for Sprout, you are welcome. You can come for 5 minutes or not at all. This is not a second event. It is just a little space, lit with soft lights where we can breathe. I would be honored to have you, and I understand if the day is full." I sent it to Maya. I sent it to Carol with a separate note. "I hope this supports the day, not adds to it. You are very welcome. I will not speak about anything that is not kind." I sent it to Sophie because I wanted her to know there was no competition here. I sent it to 2 of Lily's close coworkers who had helped her pack up her classroom when she was sick last week. I sent it to my neighbor, Mrs. Patel, because wisdom belongs in every circle. And then, after a pause, I sent it to Daniel. "No pressure," I added, "only love." I put the phone down and did not watch it. I did not wait for replies. I went to the shed again and found a few lanterns. I cleaned their glass. I set them along the path. I picked a handful of mint and lemon balm from the small garden and placed them in a pitcher of water to make a gentle drink. I wrote "Welcome" on a small chalkboard and leaned it against the steps. It felt like setting a table for hope. I slipped inside and took out a stack of small note cards. At the top of each, I drew a simple daisy with a yellow center. Beside the bowl of floating flowers, I placed a jar with pens and a note. "Write a blessing for Sprout." I did not plan for anyone to speak it aloud. Some blessings need no audience. A message popped up from Maya. "That is beautiful, I will come." Carol wrote, "Thank you for this, I may stop by, depends on how Lily feels." Sophie replied with a thumbs up and not sure what time. "Love the idea." One of the coworkers sent a smile and said, "I will bring decaf coffee." Mrs. Patel wrote a single sentence, "Light the candles, love will find its way." Daniel did not respond. That was fine. I had invited without expectation. The heart can wait without tapping its foot. I walked through the rooms of my house in the quiet. I put on the soft scarf. I looked in the mirror and told my face it was allowed to be both sad and strong. I turned off the oven, then turned it on again, not because I needed to, but because my hands needed a task. I sat at the table with the quilt box once more. I placed the letter so that it peeked out like a shy thing. Before it was time for guests to arrive at the shower, I placed the quilt box and the favors in the corner by the door. I would not bring them today. I would not impose them on a room that had decided it needed less. I would give the quilt at the blessing hour if it felt right, or later. Things could wait. Love could wait. The phone buzzed again. It was Lily. My body went warm and cold at once. I stared at the screen and felt time stretch. I answered. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, and I made my voice like a soft chair. "Mom," she said, sounding breathy and excited. "We're on our way. Today is the day." "It is," I replied. "I am so happy for you." "Are you already there?" she asked. Maya said she sent you the address again. Parking might be tricky. I closed my eyes for a second. I saw her at 6 years old, pressing leaves between book pages. I saw her at 13, tying her hair back to bake cookies. I saw her yesterday, folding a tiny onesie. I am here, I said carefully. I am cheering for you from right where I am. There was a small pause. Okay, she said slowly. I love you. I love you, I answered. May it be a gentle day. We hung up. I took a breath that did not feel like enough air and took another. The kettle hummed again because I needed it to. I poured water over tea leaves and watched the color bloom. Sometimes, watching tea darken is a kind of prayer. At the time the shower would start, I opened my back door and let the afternoon air in. I turned on the string lights, even though it was still daylight. They looked like tiny moons against the blue. I sat in one of the chairs and looked at the empty ones. I did not feel dramatic. I felt quiet. I felt the gentle thud of my own heart and told it was not alone. The hours moved. Birds came to the fence. A bee investigated a daisy and left. I stood and went inside and came out again without purpose. I wiped the same clean plate twice. I wrote a blessing on one of the cards to start the jar off so no one would have to be the first. May you always know you are wanted, I wrote. May you find strength in gentleness. Another message came. Maya sent a photo of the cake with a small sugar daisy. You are here, she wrote beneath it. Tears started. They did not need to stop for long. I let them come and then wiped them away with the edge of my scarf. Bless you, I typed back. I am so grateful. In the late afternoon, I walked to the front of the house and watered the small patch of herbs near the steps. Mrs. Patel waved from across the street. She pointed at her wrist, the way people do when they mean later. I nodded. I was glad for that. I do not know exactly what was happening at the shower. I have a picture in my mind of chairs in a circle, plates balanced on knees, laughter rising and falling. I imagine someone asking Lily to open gifts while someone else wrote down the givers' names. I imagine Carol saying her blessing with a steady voice. I imagine Sophie arranging the ribbon bouquet and taking charge of the trash with cheerful efficiency. I imagine Daniel moving around the room, trying to make sure everyone had what they needed. What I did know was this. I was making a place that could catch whatever needed catching when the day fell quiet. It was not a strategy. It was the only way I knew to honor what love asked of me that morning. Do not rage. Do not vanish. Do something else. Something gentle. Something he did not expect. I set a little plate of lemon slices on the table beside the mint water. I folded napkins and tucked a sprig of rosemary into each. I chose the best chair and placed a cushion on it for Lily's back, if she came. I moved the butter cookie tin to the center and left the lid open so the smell could find the air. The sun slid down, slow and gold. The string lights began to make their own kind of day. I sat in the chair closest to the door and listened for cars. I was not sure who would come. I was not sure if anyone would come. It did not matter. The table was set. The light was on. The door was not closed. Once more, I looked at the letter tucked into the quilt and thought about where it would live in our story. Sometimes letters stay sealed for years. Sometimes they are read on a doorstep. Sometimes they are not needed because the words find a voice instead. I decided that the letter would be okay with any of those endings. I stepped to the edge of the yard and looked up. The first star had not yet appeared, but the sky was ready. My heart was ready, too. It had been stretched in the morning, and it had not snapped. It had made a new shape. I was learning its outline with my own hands as gently as I could. I heard a car door then. I heard the quick rhythm of steps. I could not tell whose they were. I took a breath. I put on my soft face. I stood by the table with my hands open, empty, and ready to hold whatever came next. My phone lit up with photos as the afternoon moved along. I tried not to look, and then I did. There was Lily in a pale dress, holding her belly the way she does, like a quiet shield. There was the cake with the small sugar daisy. There were chairs set in a gentle circle. I breathed in and out and let the pictures land without pulling me apart. An aunt wrote under one of the photos, "We miss you." It was simple and kind. I typed back, "I'm with you in spirit." I added a small heart. I put the phone face down on the table and let my hand rest there, steadying myself like a paperweight on a letter in a breeze. Later, I would learn how that comment moved. Someone at the shower, Aunt Joan, most likely, showed the screen to Lily. She said, "Your mom wrote," with a smile. Lily took the phone and read the words. The smile left her eyes. She looked up and around the room, not in panic, but in a careful search. They had a sign-in board by the entrance with a gold pen tied to it by a ribbon. Guests wrote their names and a small note. Lily walked to it and scanned the list. She saw Maya and Aunt Joan and Carol and Sophie and many others. She did not see Maggie. She stood there for a long breath. She found Daniel near the drinks table, where he was making sure the lemonade did not run out. She touched his sleeve. "Where is my mom?" she asked. Her voice was soft, but it was lined with steel. He hesitated. He looked down at the scoop in his hand and then up at her. He took a breath. "I asked her not to come," he said. "I thought it would be simpler, less stress. I wanted to protect you." For a moment, her face did not move. Then it changed. Hurt first, like a small crack in glass, then something else, something steady and clear. She set the cup down without a sound. "You asked my mother not to come," she said. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "I am sorry," he said. "I thought it was best." She nodded once, sharp but calm. She found Maya by the gifts table. "I need a moment," she said. "I'm going to see my mom." "Do you want me to drive you?" Maya asked at once. Her hand was already reaching for her bag. "Please," Lily said. She looked back at the room, the cake, the flowers, the people who loved her, all of it humming. She turned to Daniel. "Stay," she said. "Keep it going. I will be back if I can. If not, cut the cake and save me a piece." Her words were not cruel. They were firm. Maya slipped her keys from her purse. "I'll bring the car around," she said. She pressed Lily's hand. They moved together through the doorway, past the sign-in board with its neat lines, into sunlight that smelled like spring and asphalt. Inside, Daniel stood still for a moment with the scoop in his hand. Then he put it down and did the only thing he could do. He kept moving. He refilled the lemonade. He told a cousin where the bathroom was. He smiled at a neighbor. His shoulders were tight under his shirt. He looked at the door every few minutes. Back at my house, the afternoon had shifted. The string lights waited, their small bulbs like tiny moons that had not yet woken. The mint water cooled in its pitcher. The bowl held floating daisies. The jar of pens and blank blessing cards stood like a soft invitation. Every few minutes, I glanced at the road. My phone buzzed on the table. I turned it over. Maya sent a message. "On our way," she wrote. "Lily needs you." My hands were already moving to the door. I did not pace. I placed my palm on the quilt box for a moment, like greeting an old friend. A car door closed outside. Footsteps came up the walk. I heard the quick, careful rhythm. The doorframe held the afternoon light like a photograph. "Mom!" Lily's voice reached me first. It was a single word that held 100 mornings and 1,000 nights. "I'm here," I said, already moving forward. She stepped through the door and into my arms. We did not speak for a long breath. We stood with her belly between us like a small reminder of who we were being for. There was no blame in the room. There was only the slow release of held air and the warmth of skin on skin. "I did not know," she whispered into my shoulder. "I thought you were at the back, laughing softly, watching everything." "He called me," I said into her hair. "He asked me not to come. He said it was simpler. I believed it would be kinder to say yes and not break your day with a fight." She leaned back to look at me. Her eyes were wet, not wild. "Why didn't you call me?" she asked. There was no accusation. There was only a request for the truth. "Because I did not want to put a bitter taste in your joy," I answered. "Because I did not trust my voice to be soft. Because I did not want to make you choose in the middle of your shower." I took her hand. "Because I am learning a new shape of love, and I do not always get it right." She nodded, slow and thoughtful. "Thank you for trying to protect me," she said. "But, Mom, I need to be the one who decides who stands beside me. Even when you are protecting me, please tell me. Please do not step out of the room without letting me know." "I hear you," I said. The words felt like cool water. "I am sorry. I will not do that again." I kissed her forehead, the same spot I had kissed when fevers broke and stories ended. "I have something for you," I added. I led her to the kitchen table and pulled the quilt box closer. I lifted the lid and the tissue side. On top, tucked under the edge, was the letter. "This was waiting for you," I said. "Read it when you want." She slid the letter out and unfolded it. Her eyes moved over the lines. Her mouth trembled, then steadied. She read it twice. She pressed it to her chest. "I hear you," she said. "I feel you." Then she lifted the quilt and let it fall open over our arms. The daisies lay there with their lifted faces, patched and mended, old and new. We held the quilt together, as if it were something alive, which in a way it was. It held hands and work and time. It held my grandmother's neat stitches and my uneven ones. There was the sound of another car door. A pause, a door opened, footsteps on the path, slower this time. Lily and I looked at each other. "It's him," she said quietly. I nodded. The front door opened a few inches. Daniel stood there in the space as if the house would only let him in as much as he asked. His shoulders were tense. His eyes were tired. He held his hands like someone who wanted to carry things but did not know which one to pick up first. "May I come in?" he asked. "Come," I said. My voice was steady. He stepped to the edge of the rug and stopped. He looked at Lily, at the quilt, at me. He took a breath. "I am sorry," he said. He did not hurry to explain. He let the apology sit. "I was afraid of conflict," he went on. "I felt squeezed. I thought if I could control who was in the room, I could control the weather. I made a choice alone. It was the wrong choice. I hurt both of you." Lily's face softened and stayed strong. "You do not get to protect me by removing my mother," she said. "Not without my voice in it." Her words were quiet and clear. "We choose together, or we do not choose at all." He nodded. "I hear you," he said. He looked at me. "Maggie, I am sorry for asking you not to come. I know what you have poured into Lily's life. I know what you made for today. I did not honor that. I did not trust that kindness could hold the day without spilling. I am sorry." "I accept your apology," I replied. "And I will ask for forgiveness of my own. I have tidied where I should have asked. I have surprised you with gifts that crossed lines. I have carried a habit of knowing best into rooms where it does not belong. I am sorry for those small cuts. I am learning to ask. I am learning to wait." We stood there with our truths, not long speeches, just plain words arranged like chairs in a circle. Lily's hand found his. "We begin again," she said, "with clear words and soft voices." He nodded again. "Clear words and soft voices," he repeated, as if memorizing it. I looked toward the backyard. The early evening light had grown gentle. The string lights gave a faint glow, even though the sky had not let go of its blue. "I set up something," I said. "Not a second party, a quiet hour if you want it." We walked out together. The table waited with the white cloth and the bowl of floating daisies. The butter cookie tin sat open like a small welcome. The note card stood in their jar with a sign that said, "Write a blessing for Sprout." The mint water held its bright green shadows. Lily sat in the cushioned chair. She exhaled as if she had been holding her breath for a day. I tied the soft scarf around her shoulders. "Thank you," she said, "for this light." The gate clicked. Maya slipped in, still holding her keys. She saw the circle and smiled with relief. "I dropped Lily off and told everyone she needed a breather," she said. "I told them there is another circle to join later if they want." She kissed Lily's cheek. "I kept the games going. It was fine." Behind her came Carol, carrying a dish covered with a cloth. She paused when she saw the quilt over the table edge. She walked to it, reached out, and touched a daisy. "It is beautiful," she said. Her voice warmed. She looked at me. "I am sorry for my guardedness," she added. "I have been afraid of being pushed to the edge. I have held onto my way so tightly that I forgot how to open my hands." "I have been afraid of losing the old ways," I said. "I have held so tight that I forgot the new hands in the family can hold too." We stood there, two mother hearts, not winners or losers, just women who loved the same people. We nodded at each other, a kneeling of pride. Sophie came in with a bag of napkins and a worried look. "I heard you were here," she said to Lily. "I am sorry if I steamrolled anything. I get excited and then I forget to look around." Lily smiled gently. "You are a good captain," she said. "We just need to talk before we sail." Sophie laughed at herself. Fair, she said. She reached into her bag and pulled out a length of pale ribbon. May I? She asked. At Lily's nod, she tied the ribbon around Lily's wrist, not tight, just a touch. A promise, she said. We will speak before we assume. Maya started the blessing jar with a card of her own. She wrote with care and folded it in half. She slid it into the jar and tapped it gently, like a small wish going into a well. Others followed. A coworker from the school wrote, May your home be a classroom of kindness. Mrs. Patel arrived with a small platter of samosas and wrote, May you be given the right words at the right time. She winked at me. Tea later, she mouthed, and I smiled. Laughter came in small rings like ripples after a pebble. There was no band, no speeches. There were people moving in and out of light. Carol asked for the butter cookie recipe and then said, On second thought, just make them with me sometime. I nodded. I would like that. Daniel stood a little apart at first, as if unsure of which chair belonged to him. Then he walked to the quilt. He lifted it just enough to feel the weight. We will use this, he said. He looked around the circle. We will wrap our baby in the stories of this family. We will wash it with care. We will love it, and it will be loved. He looked at me. I was wrong about it being only for show. No one objected. No one offered a counterpoint. It was a small consent, and it felt like sunlight. Evening came in full then. The string lights made their own stars. The air smelled like mint and warm sugar. People wrote quietly and then told old stories in soft voices. Lily's hand moved over her belly in slow circles. I watched her and remembered how I used to rub her back when she had trouble sleeping. At one point, Carol stood and spoke her mother's blessing, not with weight but with tenderness. May your feet find firm ground. May your hands be quick to lift and slow to point. May your home be a place of soft landings. We closed our eyes as she spoke. We did not turn it into a moment of ceremony. We let it be what it was, a mother passing water from her palm to another's. When it was time to go, people did not rush. They gathered their bags and hugged each other. Sophie squeezed my hand and said, Thank you for the light. Maya washed the few cups in my sink and said, Leave these, I like the warm water. Mrs. Patel covered the remaining samosas with foil and said, Warm these for lunch tomorrow. Daniel and Lily stayed as the yard emptied. The three of us sat for a while without talking. The night was soft around us. It seemed that even the insects had agreed to be quiet. Finally, Lily said, I am tired in a good way. I am grateful in a way that feels new, Daniel added. I have not been humbled like this before, not in a circle that held me while it corrected me. He looked at me. Thank you for not exposing me. Thank you for not making a scene. Thank you for making a place to come to instead of a wall to hit. I only did what I know, I said. I made tea. I turned on a light. I asked love to do the rest. We stood in folded chairs with the slow, contented movements that follow a good evening. I folded the quilt and placed it back in the box, not hiding it, just keeping it safe. I put the blessing jar on the mantel. The notes rustled like leaves. I ran my finger over the rim and thought of all the hands that had touched those small papers. At the door, Daniel placed his hand on the quilt box. May I carry this? He asked. You may, I said. He lifted it as if it were both precious and sturdy, which it was. Lily kissed my cheek. See you tomorrow, she asked. Whenever you ask, I replied. The words felt like a good promise, not a blanket permission, a living agreement. They walked down the steps into the quiet street. I watched them go. I stood in the doorway until the dark took the last of their shapes. Then I went inside and turned off the string lights, one by one, leaving only the small lamp by the window. I sat for a while with my hands on my knees and listened to my own breath. The house felt full, not of noise, but of something kinder. Weeks later, in the soft hours before dawn, the phone rang with the call we had all been waiting for. It's time, Lily said. Her voice was calm and bright. We're going to the hospital. I said, I love you, and then I sat on the edge of my bed and let tears slide down my face. Joy has a way of spilling. I did not rush to the hospital. I sent a message. Tell me when you want me. I made soup and let it simmer. I folded a small stack of towels, not because they needed folding, but because it settled my hands. I walked by the window and looked at the maple, steady in the early light. The next call came when the sun was high. He is here, Daniel said, wonder in his words. He is small and loud and perfect." Then he added, "We would like you to come." I put on my shoes and my soft scarf. I picked up the butter cookie tin without thinking and smiled at myself. Then I set it down and only took the letter I had written weeks ago, just in case, folded and blank, ready to hold new words. In the hospital room, everything smelled clean and gentle. Machines hummed in a steady way. Lily sat up in the bed, tired and shining. The baby lay in a clear bassinet, his breath like little clouds. He made the smallest sound, like a bird in a dream. My heart made an answering sound I did not know it could make anymore. I stood at the doorway and asked, "May I come closer?" Lily laughed, soft and full. "Please, Mom," she said. "Come meet your grandson." Daniel stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder. He looked me in the eye. "Thank you for coming when we asked," he said. "Thank you for waiting." I washed my hands and dried them with care. I sat in the chair by the window, the one that catches the gentlest light. They placed the baby in my arms. He was warm and heavier than he looked. He had a little crease above his nose like Lily had when she was new. I hummed, an old tune that had sat in my chest for years, waiting. I did not give advice. I did not rearrange the room in my mind. I sat and held what had been given. When the baby fussed, I swayed a little and then passed him back to Lily when she reached for him. I watched Daniel learn how to hold a tiny head in a big hand. I watched Lily look at both of us with a love that made me feel like a doorway. When I went home that day, I did not leave empty-handed. I left with a simple task. "Soup on the doorstep tomorrow?" Daniel asked. "If we are sleeping, just leave it there." I said yes. The next day, I set the pot down, knocked lightly, and walked back to my car. A moment later, the door opened. Daniel lifted the lid and smiled at the steam. He looked down the steps at me. "Thank you," he said. "Also, I did not expect kindness to be so strong. It worked on me. It did not beat me. It changed me." "Kindness is a stubborn thing," I said. "It goes around the edges until the sharp corners are gone." A few days later, Lily placed the quilt over the baby's legs while he slept in a bassinet near the window. She sent me a photo. In the corner, a tiny embroidered daisy showed my mother's initials, the ones she had stitched when she was a young woman with more hope than thread. The baby's foot pushed against the fabric like a small boat against a dock. I ran my finger over the photo and felt, in that odd way memory works, the exact texture of the linen. We found our rhythm. I waited to be asked. When I was asked, I came. I washed small clothes and lined them on the radiator. I chopped carrots and left them in bags in the fridge. I held the baby while Lily showered. I left when Daniel rubbed his eyes and said, "We should nap." I took my love home with me and let it rest until it was needed again. Carol came by with her blessing and her strong arms for carrying laundry. Sophie arrived with lists and then laughed at herself and tore them in half. Maya colored with the baby's older cousins at the coffee table and taught them how to hold him like a story. Mrs. Patel left a little jar of spice and a note on my doorstep. "For your soup, add a pinch at the end." We were all learning how to be a family that made room. The boundaries we spoke about in my kitchen became doorways we walked through. We asked. We waited. We answered. We reminded each other gently when we slipped. We laughed more than we apologized because the laughter meant we felt safe. The baby grew. He learned our faces. He learned our voices. He settled into the spaces we had cleared for him. Sometimes, at night, I sat in my chair by the window with a cup of tea and thought about the morning I was told not to come. I thought about the shape of my heart that day, the way it bent without breaking. I thought about the string lights, the butter cookies, the small jar of blessings. I thought about the way Lily said, "We begin again," and how we did. Love is not a stage to win. It is a kitchen table to share. It is a string of lights in a small backyard on a spring evening. It is a letter tucked under a quilt edge. It is soup left on a doorstep. It is a man who thought control was safety, learning that trust is stronger. It is a daughter who says, "Ask," and a mother who says, "I will." The morning I was told not to come, I learned how to come closer to love by taking one quiet step back. I did not disappear. I did not fight the room. I built another room and opened the door. In time, everyone stepped through, not because I pulled them, but because there was light. If you are holding something today with your whole hand, try opening it. If you are standing too close, try stepping back one pace and see what grows in the space. When we listen past our fear, We remember that love grows best where respect and kindness meet. That is where we will find each other, over and over, in the gentle light.